You're listening to the Intercoastal Podcast, part of the Destination Marketing Podcast Network. Welcome to the Intercoastal Podcast, where we explore all the stories, adventures, and culture that make the Low Country unforgettable. This is a place to find your Intercoastal. Joining me on today's episode is Paul Dengler, a famous Forrest Gump impersonator who you may have seen around our festivals here in Beaufort. Thanks for joining us. Let's dive in.
Good morning, Daquan.
Yes, good morning to you, Forrest. I kind of still get in the habit of calling you Forrest from having you join us at ABA. How often do you get that?
Well, when I'm in character all the time.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
ABA was a lot of fun, by the way.
Yeah, it was.
In Philadelphia.
Yeah, it was a great time. Everybody enjoyed it. People loved the pictures. And credit to you, you stay in character the entire time, all the way up to your hotel room. How hard is it to kind of stay in the character?
Well, I find that when I am in character, it's kind of like inertia of motion, and it just kind of keeps on going.
Yeah.
And so I don't break character until I'm done.
Yeah. And that's good, because sometimes we do see, I've had, like you saw when we went to ABA, there were other characters and other costumes for their location and destinations as well.
Right.
And sometimes they'll break character to kind of have a conversation real quick, but you're different. You stay for us the entire time.
Yes, because people want to be interacting with Forrest Gump, so I'm giving them that.
So, Paul, since you're in character, would you mind giving us a couple lines from the movie?
Sure. Well, Mama, she always said that life is like a box of chocolates. You do never know what you're going to get. And then there's, everyone wants me to run.
Yeah.
Run, Forrest, run.
Yeah.
And well, one time when I ran clear across country, I ran for 3 years, 2 months, 14 days, and 16 hours, which was a long time. And I didn't cut my hair or shave the whole time. And if you don't shave or cut your hair for 3 years, 2 months, 14 days, and 16 hours, you're going to wind up looking like one of those guys from that Duck Dynasty program.
How long did it take you to remember the days for that?
Practice makes better.
Yeah, long time. Super long time.
And there's all the ways that you can prepare shrimp, right?
Yeah.
Bubba, he knew everything there was to know about shrimping. He said that there's a lot of ways that you can make those shrimp. Like there's barbecue shrimp, shrimp kebabs, shrimp Creole. You got shrimp gumbo, shrimp jambalaya, shrimp etouffee. There's shrimp scampi, shrimp paella. You got shrimp and potatoes, shrimp burgers. You can even make like a shrimp smoothie, but nah, I sure don't recommend it. Stupid is as stupid does.
That is perfect. Thank you so much for doing that. I appreciate it.
That's all I got to say about that.
So let's get started with the first question that we typically ask here on the podcast. So what is your Beaufort story? Like, what brought you to Beaufort originally, and then what brought you back to Beaufort?
Serendipity, I would say, brought me to Beaufort, and that was in the mid-'90s. Mm-hmm. So the movie Forrest Gump came out in 94, and we moved here after that in 96. And it was in 96, it was the second year that Beaufort did something called the Beaufort Shrimp Festival, which ultimately became the Beaufort Shrimp Festival. Mm-hmm. And when we moved here, my wife suggested that I entered this Forrest Gump contest that they were having in 96 at the Beaufort Shrimp Festival. Yeah. And so kind of two things that my sister said to me as a child that kind of were prophetic in my life. She said that when I sang, I sounded like Randy Newman, and she told me I had Tom Hanks' profile, from the side. Yeah. And so anyway, so that's kind of how I got into doing Forrest, because I entered this Beaufort Shrimp Festival Forrest Gump contest in 96. And I won this contest and my picture was in the paper. And then it was Convention Consultants in Savannah, Georgia. That was the first group to hire me for a convention. And so that's how it all began. And then I started doing meet and greet kind of things throughout the Low Country, Charleston and Hilton Head, Savannah, Beaufort.
Yeah.
And that's how I got into it.
That's a really cool story just because, Beaufort played such a part like in that story. Without the Beaufort back then, Forrest Gump Shrimp Festival, would you have been a impersonator?
No, no. It's funny because, well, I was an overnight DJ at a country station in Augusta, Georgia, and I had lots of people calling in all the time and wanting to talk. But this one gentleman called me pretty much every night, and he loved the movie Forrest Gump. This was when it came out in '94, and he told me a lot about the film and what he loved about it. So I already had a good sense, but I had never seen the Forrest Gump film until just the night before the Bubba Gump Shrimp Festival here in Beaufort in '96.
Oh, wow.
I watched it that night and got a Forrest Gump outfit together and that kind of thing. But I was prepped for it because of that gentleman telling me
that's awesome.
what he loved about the film.
Did you feel like your character as Forrest like evolved over time? Like you started to collect more items, or you started to pick up more on the accent?
For sure. I would say that I learned a lot from people. I was always listening to what it is that people loved about the film and how they connected to the film. One example of that is I would get Vietnam veterans coming to me and just kind of like breaking down in tears and hugging me and that kind of thing. Because a lot of them said that of all the films that they had seen that Vietnam was portrayed in, they believed that Forrest Gump was the most realistic as far as how they remembered Vietnam. So, that was interesting. I've even done some 9th Infantry conventions and meetings. Reunion with the 9th Infantry. No one would probably know this if you weren't in the 9th Infantry in Vietnam, but anyone in the 9th Infantry in Vietnam would know that Forrest Gump was in the 9th Infantry because that's what it's portrayed as in the film.
I was gonna say that's really cool because that's like seeing Beaufort on TV. It just resonate with you, and you're like, I know I was in that. So that's that connection. You see that famous piece of what you've done.
This is true. Yeah, and Beaufort is so beautiful, and they chose Beaufort because pretty much they could film the entire film here in the Low Country and Savannah, Georgia, with the park bench scene. But even the Vietnam sequences were filmed on barrier islands right here in Beaufort, Hunting Island and Fripp Island. Yeah. So it's interesting.
It is. It's really cool to say, like, especially when a lot of people don't know, like, to give them that information, like, hey, Beaufort was home to this movie. All these scenes that you thought was Alabama, or all these scenes you were thinking about, was right here in Beaufort.
You think it's Beaufort, you think it's Alabama, and it's Beaufort, South Carolina. You think it's Vietnam, and it's Hunting Island or Fripp Island.
Yeah. So
very cool.
What parts of the movies resonated with you? You kind of mentioned the Vietnam scenes. So what do you think resonated most with you?
Well, so I've been thinking about like the inspiration, the inspirational aspects of the Forrest Gump character. You kind of watch the film and you really get inspired, by him, that he is this resilient person who, you think that all the things that he's been through might set him back and, be an obstacle that he can't overcome. But he is a very resilient person, and he's always looking for the good in everything. And I find that very inspiring. And I got that from, I started doing Forrest here in Beaufort at the Beaufort Shrimp Festival. And then I started, as a result of that, my picture was in the paper. And then I started doing meet and greet events for conventions and conferences and special events and that kind of thing. And then I moved from Beaufort to Nashville in 1999, 2000. And when I moved there, I got a call from Bubba Gump Shrimp Restaurants, and they contacted me based on a convention that I have done as Forrest here in the Low Country, and they were looking for a Forrest Gump for their restaurants. And so from 2000 to 2020, I was Forrest Gump for Bubba Gump Shrimp Restaurants, and I traveled all over. And it was, again, kind of a serendipity thing. It wasn't anything that I planned or purposed for my life, but it was just something that I kind of fell into. And as far as all of the work things that I've done in life, I think the most rewarding and enjoyable has been being Forrest.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yep.
And how often do people just recognize you as like Forrest? Like, do you think people notice when you're outside of your costume?
I do get it sometimes, but it definitely is, an acting thing. It's being in costume. It's kind of like being in the mindset of it, being in the zone, And once I'm doing that, like I said before, it's inertia of motion. I'm just kind of,
So what has helped you perfect your character as Forrest impersonating?
Practice makes better.
Yeah.
So I would say, just practice makes better. And I think, like, I did it for 20 years for Bubba Gump Shrimp Restaurants, and I loved doing that for them. I did openings for restaurants. I also did all kinds of PR kind of things for them and special events. A lot of times I was basically like doing figure eights in the restaurants and just kind of interacting with the guests, and going to tables and interacting with people as they wanted to interact with Forrest. So I would say a lot of what I do I'm not really like an actor in that I haven't done a bunch of other roles, but I'm more of a one-trick pony, and I've done Forrest a lot. And so a lot of it is kind of like canned spontaneity. So I have just like a big repertoire of things that I can do from the Forrest Gump film, and I base a lot of things on the film. But the film, before it was a film, was actually a book written by Winston Groom. That was, I think, on the New York Times bestseller list in the 80s. And it ultimately became a film because of Wendy Feinerman. She read it and she thought it should be a film, and she's one of the producers of the movie Forrest Gump, and she got a lot of different people to write various screenplays for it. And Eric Roth kind of saw that it was a love story, So if you've ever read the book Forrest Gump, it is very different from the film. And the film is kind of a condensed, version of it. And it's more focused on the love story between Forrest and Jenny, I think.
Okay. Just because you mentioned it being a book, was the book based off of a real life person, or do you know if the movie was based off of a Forrest Gump person, like someone who was?
That's interesting. Yeah, I've learned a lot about that as well, that supposedly Winston Groom took certain aspects of Voltaire's Candide, where it's kind of like this figure in history, and he's, through serendipity, accidentally running into all these famous people from that time period. And that is an element that was definitely in the book.
Okay.
So Forrest Gump, is just kind of, randomly running into all these famous people, presidents, and, John Lennon, and just all these various people. So that kind of thing is taken from Voltaire's Candide. And then it's also kind of a mixture of, Huck Finn and Tom Sawyer and all of that kind of stuff. And then it's just completely original as well. But you can definitely make some connections between all that.
Yeah. So this is just something I came across, I would say, in the last month or so. But did you hear how Tom Hanks got the idea for the voice of Forrest Gump?
Yeah, that it was the boy who was playing the young Forrest Gump.
Yep.
And so I think he didn't really have an idea about what exactly the voice would be until he met him. And he was like, oh, there you go. That's it.
Yeah, he said that kind of it was harder for him since he was so young to kind of adjust because he was a kid from Alabama and his dad was an oilman, and the way he would talk, it was harder for him to act in a different language. So he, Tom Hanks being the actor that he is, was like, well, let me talk like him instead of him trying to talk like this character we want. So, and that's kind of
very cool.
Yeah, it's a really cool story. It just shows you how far of an actor Tom Hanks is to kind of come up with that idea on the fly.
Yep, he's awesome. He's done lots of great roles for sure.
I was going to say, speaking of Tom Hanks, have you ever met any of the cast members from the film or anybody else that impersonates anybody from the film?
Yeah, I have. So Eric Roth wrote the screenplay for Forrest Gump. And I met Eric Roth at Bubba Gump Shrimp Restaurants in Chicago one summer. And I was telling him, actually, that I was working on a book, which I have right here, Pray for Shrimp, A Forrest Gump Impersonator's Guide to Gumption. It's available on Amazon. But so I would say the whole time pretty much that I was Forrest Gump for Bubba Gump Shrimp Restaurants, I was thinking about like making a book, basically, with the inspirational elements that you can draw from the Forrest Gump character and from the movie Forrest Gump. And I was thinking about all this when I met Eric Roth, and I sat down with him for about 45 minutes outside of Bubba Gump Shrimp in Chicago, and I told him about, what I saw as, what was inspiring to me about Forrest Gump and the film in general, and he validated pretty much everything that I said, which was really cool. And so that was validating and encouraging for me to get my book done.
Yeah.
And so, but I've met Arthur Schmidt here at the Beaufort International Film Festival. So he was the film editor for Forrest Gump, and I actually had dinner with him at IHOP.
Oh wow,
which was really neat.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, and he said that he's done lots of films as film editor. I think Little Big Man was his first film that he worked on, but he's done a bunch of different things. And I was telling him about the inspirational elements that you can get from Forrest Gump as well. And he, again, validated what I was saying, which was just very encouraging. So
that's really cool.
I also met Bill Roberson, who is the actor that plays the businessman in Savannah in Chippewa Square, where Forrest is talking to this businessman, and he's telling him about Vietnam and about getting shot on the buttocks and about the successes that he had in shrimping and all of that. And Bill Roberson at the end, or his character, gets up at the end and says, all this time we've been sitting next to a millionaire. Well, I met Bill Roberson, and he was really encouraging to me as well. And actually, he wrote the foreword to my book, which was really cool.
Yeah.
And he's he had a business in Columbia, South Carolina. Also, in addition to acting, he did stained glass windows. He was a stained glass window artist. And so I got a chance to meet him, and he wrote the foreword to my book, which was awesome. And he passed away 7 months after he did that. So
yeah, it was nice that he was able to do that.
It was really cool.
Yeah.
He was a very humble and encouraging person.
Yeah. And we know that you've traveled all over the country and all over the world and have impersonated Forrest Gump for a bunch of different companies and locations. Is there a different feeling when you impersonate Forrest Gump here and when you come back to the Beaufort Shrimp Festival?
Yes. I would say in Beaufort, everyone here is very much aware that the movie Forrest Gump was filmed here. So that, I think, is just kind of another level, being here as Forrest. It's like everyone just is very amused and tickled by seeing Forrest in the town where the film was was done.
Yeah.
So that's different, I would say, than other places. But the movie is so popular that I would say everyone, everywhere, all different ages and, demographics and, just everybody, from all walks of life has seen the film. And a lot of people love it
Yeah, they do.
everywhere.
I was going to say, I've walked with you around town here in Beaufort, and then I've walked with you in ABA in Philadelphia, and everyone's just so receptive to it. They love it. They love to tell you their favorite scenes of the movie. They love to come up and say, "Oh, I love Forrest. I love the movie. It was great." Can you tell us a few memorable interactions you've had as Forrest Gump?
Yeah. Well, I've had a bunch for sure. People love the film and find it, to be inspiring. The thing about the film, I would say, is that it's not just a comedy. It is very much, a drama.
Yeah.
And there's comedic aspects as well. But the whole movie kind of goes between laughter and tears. You're kind of laughing at one point and you're crying the next. And all points in between. So I think interacting with Vietnam veterans is probably the very memorable thing, just the reaction that you get from them about the character in the film and what it means to them. I think that's very important. And then just people love it. People love all the lines from the film. There's so many good ones. One of them is "Life is like a box of chocolates.
Yes.
You never know what you're going to get." And I always, and I talk about that in my book as well, that I always kind of take that to mean that life is not just random. It's kind of what you get from the expression, "Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get." Like it's random. You just don't know what's going to happen at any point. But I try to underline the point for people that life is like a box of chocolates in that everything in life is really sweet. So you may not know what you're going to get, but keep looking for the sweetness in life.
Oh, that's really good. I like that.
One thing that was the most inspiring to me recently, this was the last Beaufort Shrimp Festival here. I had a young woman come up to me who is a teacher in Beaufort, and she teaches high school. And she came up with my Finding Your Wings to Fly book in this Ziploc baggie. And she said, with a pen in it, and she said, I just want you to sign my book if you could. So I signed the book for her, and she told me that she really loved it and that she actually uses this book with her students. She is also a cheerleading coach at the school, and she said that they actually use this Finding Your Wings to Fly book as a kind of a book of encouragement or like a devotional. And it's basically, this book is 7 years of my journal writing, and it was kind of 7 years of me going through some tough things. And every morning, not every morning, but what I wrote in the book were things that came to me as I was waking up in the morning. And I found out later after the fact that is something that a lot of people experience. That's why a lot of people will keep notepads by their bed and that kind of thing, because you come up with like ideas just randomly. Let's wake up with some idea and you need to write it down. And this whole book was that, and it was all just kind of like bits of wisdom that came to me in the mornings, and I just wrote them down, and I didn't think of making it a book at all. And then in 2020, I felt like I needed to get it out there. So that was the most encouraging thing recently, to find out that someone has connected with this book, and that, she told me that her students love it and they really are encouraged by that. So I find that very rewarding.
Yeah, that's really good that not only you made an impression with impersonating Forrest Gump, but you've also made an impression as a writer to other people. So that's another aspect.
Absolutely.
Speaking of another aspect, we know that you're a passionate musician. Can you tell us about how you got started and kind of what you're doing now?
Yeah. Well, so my father passed away when I was 15, and that's when I started playing guitar. And I think my guitar playing and songwriting I started pretty much writing at that time, and it was kind of a catharsis for me. It was definitely a therapeutic kind of thing. And so that's kind of been how I process things through writing. And so that's pretty much what my songwriting is about. It's me just kind of like processing things that I'm going through in my life. So that's kind of where it came from. And from the very beginning, I knew it was something that I wanted to do and that I needed to do, that I had a passion to do. And so I've been writing, since I've been 15. And so now I have a lot of music on all the online streaming platforms. So if you're on Spotify or Pandora or Deezer or Apple Music or iTunes or Amazon Music or YouTube Music, you can find my songs on there if you search for Paul Dengler.
I know Mid-Atlantic is working to put together a Forrest Gump tour here in Beaufort. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, the film is so popular, the Forrest Gump film, and lots of people know that Forrest Gump was filmed here in Beaufort and the Low Country. So Mid-Atlantic is putting together a tour to get different tour groups from all over the country, all over the world, to come to Beaufort and kind of, see where the movie was filmed, get a feel for, the backdrop of the setting.
Yeah.
I guess it was set in Alabama, but it was actually all filmed right here in Beaufort. So
Yeah.
So while I'm here in the Beaufort area, I'm looking forward to doing as much of that kind of thing with Mid-Atlantic and any other events that need Forrest.
Yeah, that's really cool. Whether it's going to the chocolate tree with Forrest, or driving down over the bridge and Forrest is your step-on guide for motor coach or anything like that. That's something unique that a lot of areas and destinations can't offer. So to be able to combine an iconic movie with an impersonator like yourself with the location in the scenic roots of the movie is just the perfect match.
Yeah, I agree.
We know that your music has been featured in The Spirit of Beaufort, Remembering Forrest Gump. We actually had the directors of that movie here on our podcast.
Daniel.
Yeah, we had Daniel on our podcast, and he was amazing. Cares about the Beaufort area, cares about Forrest Gump, and for him to not be from America is really cool. That someone has that much passion for our little area. Can you tell us about your experience making the music for that film?
Yeah. Well, I met Daniel through Irene Goodnight. She had met him first. And so Daniel loved the movie Forrest Gump. And when he came to Beaufort, he fell in love with Beaufort. And he knew right then and there that he wanted to do a documentary about the backstory of the making of the movie Forrest Gump. So that's how I got contacted. Not that I was in the film. A lot of the people in this documentary were extras in the film, or they were people who, like with the chocolate tree, provided the chocolate for the film. Or there were people whose homes or properties were used in the film as a set for various scenes. And so I wasn't in the film, but my life intersected with the film. And it led to a 20-year career for me with Bubba Gump Shrimp Restaurants. So when Daniel contacted me, I was initially reluctant because you never know exactly how, something like that. Are they going to edit this and make me look great? Or are they going to edit this and make me look bad? So I was reluctant about it. But after seeing it at the Beaufort International Film Festival last year, I was really happy about it. It turned out awesome. And so my interview is one of the interviews in the film. There's Marlena Smalls, who played Bubba's mama, and she is in the film. She's one of the interviews as well. And then Irene Goodnight, Evelyn Stevenson, and Ron and Rebecca Tucker, and all those people. So it turned out great. And the thing that I'm happiest about the film is that they used 8 of my songs in the film. They even had me write the film score for the film, which was a piano piece that I had written years ago. And Daniel said, "Can you do something that sounds like Alan Silvestri's Feather theme?" So me and my friend Gary Forsyth, we listened to Alan Silvestri's Feather theme, and we took my original piano melody and we listened to all of the instruments that were in Alan Silvestri's Feather theme in the film, and we used those instruments. And so it sounds like it's cut from the same cloth as that Feather theme.
Yeah.
But it's an original piece. And I'm very happy with how all that turned out. It's a great opportunity for me, which is one of the reasons that I'm here in Beaufort right now.
Yeah, and we'll play a quick sample of that score right now.
I never wanted to end. No, I never let you go. No, I never let you go. Never let you go.
This has been a great episode. Thanks so much for coming on the show, Paul. Can you tell the listeners where they can find you and find your music?
Well, if you search for slowcountryjazz.com, not low country jazz, but slow country jazz, you'll find information about this trio that I'm part of. And we're doing retro kind of 20s, 30s sounding jazz music, but it's all original songs that we're writing. And also my books on Amazon are Finding Your Wings to Fly and Pray for Shrimp, a Forrest Gump Impersonator's Guide to Gumption. So
yes, that's a perfect way to find Paul's books on Amazon or go listen to his music on any musical platform. Thank you for listening to the Intercoastal Podcast. We hope we've inspired you to find your intercoastal wherever your journey takes you. You can follow us on social media at visit_BeaufortSC on Instagram or at BeaufortSC on Facebook. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review, and share our podcast with others who love the Low Country. We'll talk to y'all next time. This has been another episode of the Intercoastal Podcast, hosted by Daquan Mickens and the team at Visit Beaufort, Port Royal, and the Sea Islands. Produced by Brand Revolt.